90s Retro Return.
When I was a kid in first grade, my school had a computer lab that was filled with Apple IIe computers, and they had the monitors that only displayed everything in shades of green. And we also had a collection of those really large floppy disks with different games on them. Once a week, we were allowed to go to the computer lab to play Oregon Trail and then die of dysentery. And then when we were done, we had to put vinyl covers over both the monitors and the keyboards, because at the time they thought if dust got into them, they might explode or just completely ruin the computer. To some of you watching this video, hearing that may make me sound like a caveman from the old ages, which is kind of fair, to be honest. However, others of you watching this video may have similar memories of playing educational games in elementary or primary school in the late 80s through the 90s as well. These games were sometimes labeled as edutainment games, where they tried to blend learning with computer gaming. Oregon Trail, Number Munchers, and Word Munchers were the most popular ones in my school at the time, but some of you may be familiar with games like Reader Rabbit, Where in the World Is Carmen Sandiego, Freddi Fish, The Magic School Bus, or even the Barbie Detective game series. Oddly enough, the state of Minnesota was actually responsible for bringing a lot of those games to our schools. The Minnesota Educational Computing Corporation, or MECC, produced games such as Oregon Trail, Yukon Trail, Number Munchers, Word Munchers, and Dino Park Tycoon. These old computer games may just seem like nostalgic computer lab memories, but they were actually also part of a 90s gold rush at the time. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank had a company called SoftKey International, who acquired a learning company in 1995, and they later bought MECC, and then sold the company to Mattel in 1998 for $3.5 billion. One of the most popular games even to this day is Oregon Trail. The original game was created by three Minnesota student teachers named Don Rawich, Bill Heineman, and Paul Dillenberger. They created it for an 8th grade history class, but later when Rawich joined MECC, he revived the game and used actual pioneer diaries to improve the historical details. Number Munchers and Word Munchers were similar to Pac-Man. You played as a green creature trying to eat math and grammar answers while being hunted by Troggles. Number Munchers taught multiples, factors, and primes, while Word Munchers focused primarily on reading and language skills. The Reader Rabbit series was produced by the Learning Company in 1984 for the Apple II, Atari 8-bit, and Commodore 64, but most people associate them with the CD-ROM games from the 90s. The series was aimed at kids that weren't quite old enough to die of dysentery on the Oregon Trail, and it followed Reader Rabbit and his friends Sam the Lion and Matilda the Mouse through different point-and-click adventure games, where the player would use their inventory and interact with characters to solve puzzles. The Where in the World Is Carmen Sandiego game series debuted in the mid-80s, but like Reader Rabbit, most people just remember it when it was on a CD-ROM in the 90s. In those games, kids would play as detectives and solve cases using different geography clues and almanacs. The first game sold over 4 million copies by 1995, which then later spawned TV shows and sequels and the larger Carmen Sandiego franchise. Freddi Fish was a series of point-and-click games from 1994. Freddi's best friend was a green fish named Luther, who went with her on all her adventures. The games were divided into a larger main game world, where the player completed quests for NPCs and gathered items to work towards solving the mystery, and then an endgame area where Freddi and Luther would solve the mystery itself. Also in 1994, The Magic School Bus Explores the Solar System debuted in the first title of Microsoft's Magic School Bus game series. Miss Frizzle gets lost somewhere in outer space, and the player has to gather clues to complete mini-games and experiments. Before Mattel bought out all the companies that made the edutainment games, they released one called Detective Barbie and the Mystery of the Carnival Caper in 1998. It was a point-and-click adventure game that strangely enough dealt with issues like charity fraud and missing persons. In the game, Ken volunteers for a magician's disappearing trick, but he actually vanishes for real, and he disappears with the charity money. The game also stored a database of more than 700 first names that players could choose from, including ones like Moonbeam, Moon Unit, and Thumbelina. So I bet all the kids named Moon Unit in 1998 were pretty psyched to see their name come up in a Barbie game. What computer games were you allowed to play in school, or even at home as a kid? Comment below and let me know, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos where I return to 90s retro pop culture.